Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, which also is known as 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Brooke Wheeldon-Reece with us. Brooke is the president and CEO of the Cyprus Initiative, a nonprofit organization. Brooke is the co-author of the SPARK, which stands for Speaking to the Potential, Ability, and Resilience Inside Every Kid mentoring curriculum, which is currently being taught to thousands of children in Tampa and around the world. Prior to her work with the Cyprus Initiative, Brooke was a national trainer for the Mendez Foundation's nationally recognized Too Good for Drugs and Violence prevention programs. Brooke has also spent time as a business consultant and curriculum developer for Verizon and Learning.com. Brooke knew she found her home with the Cyprus Initiative after watching her husband come out of a deep depression with seemingly little effort. Now she dedicates her work to creating sustainable change throughout all populations via mentoring, coaching, and teaching and understanding of the mind. Brooke lives in Florida with her husband, Will, their two biological daughters, and three almost adopted niece and nephews. Brooke, thank you so much for joining us, taking the time out of your very busy life to do this webinar. I'm really excited to hear what you're going to share.
Thank you. So I have to laugh because it says almost adopted, but it's like I wrote that bio a few months ago, and almost seems like a almost, maybe almost, maybe not so much almost. Okay, every kind of step is, it doesn't seem closer, let's say that. It seems like a almost gets further away than closer, but that's part of what we'll talk about today. I thought that I would share just a few things with you all and then take questions. So when Bonnie asked me to do this webinar, it was back in April after I wrote a blog about, I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but about some changes that I've been going through personally in my personal life. And if you can mute yourself, Alexandra, that would be good.
Sorry.
Thanks. Alexandra's new to our office. And so when she asked me to do the webinar on parenting, she said, would you do a webinar on parenting? I loved your blog. Today I was talking to the people at the office, and I said, oh, thank God I didn't have to do it then, because if I had to do it then, it would have been still a lot of chaos and clutter that I've been working through in my mind. So I'm glad it was 4 months ago that you asked me and that we're doing it today, because I do feel like I have a lot more clarity today than I had a few months ago. So just a little backstory before I get into it. One, I'm really nervous, and I told Ashley works with me, and I told her today I was nervous, and she said, why in the world are you nervous? And really I'm nervous because a lot of the stuff that I want to share isn't really mine to share. So I want to be really careful about just the stories that I do share to make sure that they're okay personally. So I don't get into too many personal details that aren't my personal details to share. So if I pause, it's just because I'm thinking about the story and who the story is about and if it's okay, because this is a public webinar. So that's why I'm nervous, because I have a lot to share, but I some of it's just not mine to share. So, and then the other thing is if you guys have personal questions or questions that detail would help, I don't mind after this webinar talking to you privately about that. So again, this is a public webinar, so I just really want to be cognitive of the kids that are involved and the details that I share about that. So deal? All right, deal. So long story short is I got involved with the principles, as you heard in my bio, because my husband went through a really deep depression back in 2013. And he came out of it based on a training I went through. And I won't bore you with that story, but I learned about the principles and said something really small to him, and it changed him. But his depression was from his brother-in-law's suicide. And his brother, or my brother-in-law's suicide. My brother-in-law actually committed suicide in 2012, and it took Will like a year to even react to it, almost. So it was almost like no reaction, and then on the year anniversary there was a major reaction, and he went into a really deep depression and had a pretty transformative turnaround from that. But the suicide left my niece and two nephews without a father. And through a variety of events, we did not see them for about 4 years. So we kept in touch with the mother and my niece and two nephews for about a year, and then they kind of went off the grid, without getting into too many details about that. And it wasn't until about September of last year, my husband said to me, I heard from the kids, they're the kids to us, and I heard that they were back in Florida and they're in foster care. And my husband is, he works for a supermarket. He doesn't really know much about child welfare and all of that. But for me, I've always worked in child welfare. So as soon as he said they're in foster care, my alarm bells went off. Like, we got to get them. We have to find them. We have to get them out of foster care. And so we did. We looked for them for about 2 months, and we found them. It took 2 months to locate them. And when we located them, they were 5 minutes down the street from our house. And so December 1st, they came into our house, and they joined our family. So I have 2 daughters of biological daughters, as you heard, and now 3 my niece and nephew. So I have 5 kids at home. So I went literally from 2 children at home to 5 children at home overnight. And the other part of that is my kids didn't know them. They knew of them. They'd heard their names before, but they didn't know them. So what I really wanted to talk about today was is my arrogance about how I thought it was going to be because of what I knew and the understanding of the mind that I had. So if there's been one phrase in the past 9 months that has been repeated by others and by me the most, it's like, thank God you know what you know. And at the beginning of this, I said that with such, I guess the only word I can say is arrogance, like, thank God I know what I know, because if I didn't, this would be really difficult. And now I say it with the only word that's coming to me is a little bit of grace, because I just see it differently. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. And then the other piece of what I wanted to talk about was the title. What we titled the talk is Seeing Unbreakable Children, I think, in a seemingly broken world, and why that makes all the difference, I think, is the title, something like that. But that piece is what's kind of, I guess, the glue that's held everything together for me. So I just wanted to share like 3 major insights that I have had, and then take questions if that's okay. So what I thought I knew is one of my insights, I like to call them, or call it, is I had this belief that I didn't know I had until I saw it. But what I thought knowing how the human experience works, what I thought that meant was that things would be easier. And I think we get, in a certain way, we get that message a lot. Like, once you understand how the human experience works, hard times will be easier. And that can be true. But what that led for me, what that led to was a heck of a lot of arrogance, letting and inviting the kids in the house and just having that. Because what I didn't see was I took thought for granted, because I understood that the human experience only works one way, because I understood that I'm creating my experience. I took my experience for granted. Like I took the strength of that and the power of my experience for granted. Meaning, somehow, so for example, when the kids first came in, I didn't tell them to line up, but apparently something in me was offering my assistance to fix everything, to line up when I get home, and they'd one by one give me their grievances. So for a while, when they first came to the house, I had 5 children. I would sit down after I'd come home from work, and one by one, they'd tell me all their grievances, and I would go through my litany of, let's fix it. Okay, so let's look at it this way. Let's look at it this, and I just went into counselor mode somehow. But looking back, why that even happened, or that even looked like a logical thing for me to do, was because I had this little voice in my head going, it's going to be okay. You're making this up. Like, you're stressed out, but you're making this up. Like, you're stressed out, but that's your experience. It doesn't have to be everyone's experience. And I had this little repeating voice in the back of my head, realizing that I was the one creating my reality, right? But what I didn't have a feel for was, when it's being created, it's real. And that's what you're putting out into the world. So I had a bunch of stress that I was telling myself I was okay about, and a bunch of changes that I was telling myself I was okay about, but I didn't give it the credit it was worth. So I don't know if I'm saying that clearly, but let me just tell you how it looks now and see if it helps. So I think it was either Monday or Tuesday. I was actually with Ashley after work, and I got another phone call. We think, like I said, the process of the adoption keeps going and going and going. And while I was in court, I got a phone call from the state attorney in Minnesota, and we live in Florida. And come to find out, there's another open case that has to do with abuse for the children that are living with me. And the details that you get with this kind of stuff just kind of make your stomach turn. And Ashley said, thank God you know what you know. And the difference, I felt it, the palpable difference between her saying this now, with me giving credit to how powerful thought is and how my state of mind does actually matter, was in that moment, I thought, yeah, because I don't have to go there, right? So before, I was going there with all of my stuff. Before I saw how much power thought has, it really does, how much it is so real, it is so palpable. Even when you are on the outside looking at it going, yeah, I'm doing this, it's still real. So the difference there was, and I think I even said something to her to this effect, was yeah, because I don't have to go there. There are things that are completely out of my control. There are things that I would not want to wish on my worst enemy that have happened in the past year, but I don't have to go there. And I don't think I had a respect for that before. Not that I didn't have to go there, but what going there actually does to your state of mind, and what state of mind does have to offer. A lot of times we think, and I do believe this, powerful things can come through a bad state of mind. You don't have to be in a great state of mind to be capable of things. I believe all of that. I've seen all of that actually, but it's also there was also just a respect that I didn't have for the clarity of mind you know, what clarity of mind actually offers you. There was a respect that I didn't have in that nature that I have now. And then the third thing that I really have seen is, and that's probably been the most rewarding, but also, so I work at Cyprus, and obviously we work with kids that have been through a lot. But seeing your own kids go through something and seeing their natural resilience, it's almost like you're not just talking about it anymore. You've seen it, like, and you see it every day. So it's like they really are unbreakable. So it's not just words. So what I will say is I'll tell a story about my kids, because I can tell stories about my children. When my niece and nephews came in the house, what I was expecting was to have to help them a lot, right? Adjust. What I did not take into account was my kids, because I already knew that my kids were like unbreakable. I already had that in the bag, right? My kids are gold. First of all, they know what I know. Secondly, I've seen that my kids are unbreakable. I've seen that there's like, I've just seen their health, you know, beyond anything, because they live in my house every day. And what I didn't take into account is maybe it would shake them or rattle them at all. And what I found so fascinating was the resilience with the new kids that were in our house was so palpable. And my kids didn't know they had that yet. Like, the kids that came into our house, you could just tell they already knew. Like, they've been through so much. They know their human spirit. Like, they know what they're made of. No one has to tell them, because they've been through what they've been through. No one has to say, you're going to be okay. They already know it. They've already been there, done that. They have a feel for it. And they might not have words for it, but they have a feel for it. And my kids never really been through much. They were the ones that were just like, you would have thought that the world crumbled on them, right? You would have thought that they lost everything. And what I saw was, one, kids that have been through trauma, like, what a gift almost. And I know it's weird saying, but what a gift for them to see what they're made of, like what they're truly made of. What a gift for them to see that they don't, like, things on the outside don't determine their wellness. And I could only say that after seeing what I've seen in the past 9 months with the children that have been in my house. And so a lot of times as parents, what it showed me was, we try really, really, really hard to not let things happen to our kids and to prevent life from happening to our kids. And what I saw was, oh my gosh, this builds. It doesn't build, it shows them what they're made of. It shows them what happens when they start trusting and who they really are and what they're really made of. And I've seen that in my, I went through months where my 13-year-old, she wouldn't talk to us. She, basically hated us. She hated her life. She had to share a room. She still has to share a room. It's not really exciting for her, but, or anything that a 13-year-old wants to do. But it was about 2 months ago that she just turned a corner, and started appreciating her state of mind too. Like started appreciating what she followed, like what road she followed, and who she really is. That's really the only words I have for that. The other thing about really seeing, like during all this time, my husband and I went through a lot. I would say we have a pretty strong marriage, but there were times where I was like, get out, I can do this myself, I can do this better. And coming out the other side of that is really just having a lot more appreciation for seeing what I can control and what's not in my control, and really I've said this like 3 times now, but it's like the appreciation for how real things can seem when you're in it. And the last thing I'll say is, and I think the turning point for me is when the one thing that kind of held it all together in the past 9 months is knowing that no matter what, we weren't going to, we would all be okay. Like no matter what, right? So no matter if the court said the kids had to leave, no matter if the kids stayed with us forever, no matter if, Will and I didn't work out, no matter what more, how many more details I found out about the kids, there's this unbreakable spark in all of us, and we would all be okay. And knowing that there's also this knowing that the person that we're dealing with in order to make this adoption happen, that's in her too. And there's some pretty terrible things that have happened. But seeing that in someone else gives you a sense of neutrality that allows you to have clarity of mind, allows you to make decisions that are in the best interest of everybody and not in this back and forth of being right or wrong or causing any more divide. And it's funny because as I'm going through all of this, there's like this national debate. So I'll compare it to the national debate. Kids being ripped from their families by crossing the border, right? So I feel like I'm going through a small version of that in my home. And what I can see is that there's no way to solve that problem, and there's no way to solve the problems in my home if I am sitting in a place of I'm right, they're wrong, oh my gosh, what's happened to them in their past. I have to protect them from that. I can't let those things happen again. If I'm sitting in that place, then the only thing that does is, again, creates that reality that I'm up against. And no matter how much we see thought as, fleeting or made up or, all the words that we say, if I'm sitting in a place of I have to do something about it, it's my job to do something about it, and I lose sight of the fact that we're all a part of something much bigger and it's really not in my control, then I get into the state of mind and lose clarity on what to do next. So I had a really, like, just kind of a really rough week the other week because court dates were coming up and I had to decide if I was going to reach out to the mother or not. And I didn't do anything. I just paused. Like, I didn't do anything, but I wasn't sleeping. I knew I wasn't sleeping. But I knew enough to know not to do anything, like just not to act. And actually read a blog or a post or something that Claire Diamond wrote, if you know her, on her Facebook page at, like, I don't know, 3 a.m, talk about lack of clarity. 3 a.m, I'm wide awake trying to figure out what I should do. And I read it, and what was so powerful to me was just the reminder of how important neutrality is in all of it. And if I say on a daily basis that I see my kids as unbreakable, I see people as unbreakable, I think that everyone has this spark, then that's everybody. That's not just my people. That's all people. And we can all get lost, and we forget that we forget the power of thought. We think like it's like an in and out, right? But even when you're seeing it as your own, you forget the power, but it's really real, and it can make people make really crazy decisions that look okay to them in the moment. And just that neutrality of seeing, oh my gosh, like, it's not just words. They really were doing the best they could, as awful as I think it is. And they have the ability to come back to a place of peace, just like I did, right? They have the ability to come back to a place of clarity and get a clean slate, just like we do every day. And I have no idea. So I did reach out to this person, but I have no idea where that will lead. Nothing's happened yet. But there's such a sense of, like, that knowing that that's the right place to be at. That's the right place to act from. Not this place of, trying to control, which is my go-to. If I ever, like, my biggest indicator of being off is me trying to control stuff. Like, that's just where I go. I go control. But there's so much about this that is, well, everything that's out of my control, that the only thing that makes sense now is a sense of neutrality meeting any of it. So you should see the looks on people's faces that don't understand this, and my family, where I'm like, I don't know what the best thing is. And I mean that. I don't know what the best thing is for these kids. So I have to put my trust in that, like, whatever happens, they'll be okay. And I know that. That's what I know. And I don't know what the best thing is for my kids going forward. But I do have such an appreciation for my state of mind now, where I didn't before. Because I thought, well, I can do all things. Like, my capability, I can have major insights when I'm in a crazy state of mind, or I can have profound things happen in my life when I'm low. But I didn't, so therefore I thought it doesn't freaking matter. But I see that, oh my gosh, there are things that you can do, and to not go there, right? Let me tell you, when the state of Minnesota calls right on the day of your court date, and that's going to prolong something another 3 or 6 months, my mind could go, blah, what's wrong? Don't they see what's going on with these kids, like, in this and that and that? And I would have, like, I totally would have gone down that road. But there's just something about my appreciation for what I'm doing, and to follow that, or what I'm not doing. So I would love to take questions. I think I jumbled a little bit. Hopefully I made some things clear. The other thing, well, if anyone, while people are thinking of questions is, and I'll share this because it's my daughter. So one of the first things I don't know, it's like a crack in the screen or a crack in the, like a peek through the veil when I was kind of going crazy was, I went through months of just like autopilot. And I look back now and that was so wisdom, because so much had to happen within the first few months that had I been able to stop and think about what was going on, I think it would have just propelled into a downward spiral of bananas. But there was so much I didn't notice because I was on autopilot and I wasn't present. I was just kind of going through the motions. And I remember my daughter coming into the room and she's washing her hands and she goes, "Ow, my hands hurt." And she was telling me for a few days her hands hurt. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I don't know what's wrong with your hands. She's washing her hands and she's going, "My hands hurt." And I just shot up out of bed and I thought, oh, her anxiety's through the roof and she's washing her hands too much. Like OCD, hello, right? It just like shot up. And one of the things about seeing that I think is profoundly different, like seeing my kids as Unbreakable, is that wasn't, oh my God, she's got OCD, we gotta fix this right now. It was just oh, that makes sense. Like she's doing what she does when she gets overly anxious. And I just said, oh my gosh, Gabriella, let's talk about it. Like, first of all, stop washing your hands. She's 8. She was 8 at the time. She's 9 now. Like, stop washing your hands. They won't hurt so much if you stop. And then I said, well, Gabriella, why do you think you have to wash your hands so much? And she said, well, I got to get this right because it was perfect. Like, it's not the adult version of OCD that we all think of, like, oh, she's over anxious, so she's washing her hands and it's a compulsion. And like, she said something like, because of germs, and you said that the flu is killing people. Okay, because of germs, and you said, okay, and I thought, I said the flu is killing. So we had a huge strain of the flu last year, and I must have been talking to my husband, reading this article, like, oh my gosh, another lady died from at some point she heard that, and she took it way overboard. And I said, oh, yeah, it is, but we had like a short conversation. Do you know that germs are helpful? Like, do you know why we have germs? And she's, no. And then we did that little conversation real quick. And a few days later, she asked me about germs again, gave her the answer, and it was done. And I just think, like, she has tendencies, believe me. OCD runs strong in my family and deep in my family, and I'm not brushing it off as a nothing, because there's been some kids in my family that really suffered from it. But the difference for me is just seeing that in that moment, she was my kid, so she was going to be okay, right? Like, I knew what she had. I knew she had that Unbreakable. Like, I knew she was just doing it. So the response was just, why are you doing that? And had I not known that, I don't know that given all of the OCD in my family and all of that, the traction in my family with that and what we've gone through, I wouldn't have the clarity to say, well, why are you washing your hands so much? I would have, gone down a road of, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Now I have to deal with this, another kid with something else to deal with. So it's just one of the stories of not seeing and then seeing what's going on around you and the clarity that you have with that. Any questions? Pat, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Love listening to that. It's not actually the question. It was just listening to what I was feeling inside of me, and what I was feeling is, I forget it's not on me. It's neutral till I step in. That's all really I wanted to share, because listening to you with your children, I've had children and grandchildren, and wanted to fix them, always thought we were all broken. And coming in to listening to the principles and being pointed in a different way, there is a lot of times now that I notice that I can get concerned and worried, and then again just suddenly realise they're not broken. They have their own wisdom. And again, that line just keeps hitting my face. I forget it's not on me. Thanks, that's all. It just kept coming to me about you saying, I so easily forget that really everything is neutral. It is what it is. It's an experience, but sometimes it isn't. That I loved you saying, you forget how powerful thought is, how you create it into something that is so real to you, and then it isn't real. So I'm just so glad I had the opportunity to listen to you, Brooke. It was lovely. And thank you for your sharing of your family situation.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's so simple. Like, that's so simple to see, but it's so easy to forget.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I sometimes can't believe in a way how I do forget, because when I'm in the nice bit and it's all okay and I think it's all flowing, and then it's like everything I seem to know goes out the window because it seems so real, whatever is happening. And my thoughts about it, and forgetting actually that I'm not choosing these thoughts that I'm having, that they're coming in, but I'm not seeing them as neutral, because when I hear them, they seem like a command, or they seem so powerful and real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was just feeling overwhelmed. And then I see that where I get to is that I lose my own sense of well-being, because I think I should do something. I don't know what to do. So I'm not trusting to just let go and see what comes up to do. And I just try to imagine me being in all that turmoil that you were in. And it seemed that you just kept coming back to that sense of your well-being, even when you go out of it, then you come back to it. So I guess that the reminder for me is that, wow, I get triggered into wanting to take control, do something, what I need to, I don't know what to do. So, and then I take that thought as so overpowering instead of seeing it neutral within myself first. And so I like what you said, Pat, about it's not my job, but I sure jump in thinking it's my job. So I just really appreciate and respect what you've been through. And it just seemed like there's so many different layers of insight that I think that was what was just, it was nice to hear it, but it was overpowering to me. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Yeah, it's, for me, I really like what Pat said, and maybe I said it, but I think she said it very articulately, but there's something really awesome about knowing your well-being, because I don't think once you see that you ever truly lose sight of it. But you can believe your story, right? You can believe whatever you're going through in the moment, and you can lose sight of it for a moment. But what I saw is I would lose sight, and then I'd come back, and I'd lose sight, and then I'd come back, and I'd lose sight, and I'd come back. And it was just I've heard people say it before, but like when something real is going on right in front of you, you know, that's like, that really matters. And to me, these kids really, really matter. Like my family really matters to me. My marriage really matters to me. It was just, you know, it's so close that you go out and you come back in. But yeah, you're right. Like your well-being and the neutrality of everything is the safeguard, right? Like that's the stuff that doesn't go away. Everything else is a variable. Anyone else? Let's see. Yeah.
Let's see. Do I have to unmute myself?
I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Brooke. It's just like a good shot in the arm, just listening and being on this call. And I also so much appreciate your just sharing your own experience and your vulnerability around that. You know, I mean, that's really awesome. And, you know, and I started to think, well, what is my question? And really what brought me to this call was I have, you know, I know that it's not up to me. And and yet I have a situation in my life with someone that I really care about, you know, close friends, and I'm the godmother to their child, and she's 13, and she's just going through this terrible, terrible time with anxiety for the last number of years. And, you know, her parents are doing a beautiful job. And I feel like, gosh, I wish that I had some way of sharing, you know, of just what I'm discovering about we're not broken and well-being. And so I thought maybe my question is for someone, you know, in my position. I mean, I'm on the outside of all of this, but certainly, you know, like, is there any kind of pointer to a resource? I mean, I know that you're very involved with the Cyprus Initiative, but is there some kind of resource or just something that you would say that you could just point me in a direction?
Well, I think there's a lot of resources out there for kids, but what I'll just tell you what I've learned about my own kids. So my 13-year-old, I'm pretty sure anxiety runs in everybody's family, but my family they just seem to have like a crazy thread of anxiety. And I never thought I was anxious. I never really like held on to anxiety like something that I was, and I still don't, but I can see like when I get anxious, I do certain things. But my 13-year-old, she was actually diagnosed with OCD when she was in first grade and prior to me knowing this. And, but by second grade and me understanding this is one of those things I can't really explain, so I'm going to try, but I will say that the moment I saw her health, and that really like all it was this, but there was no like actual diagnosis to be made other than when she's in this, she does this. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like when she's in this, there are things that happen. Just like when I'm in this, there's things that happen. I got to clean the house and everyone in my office ignores me because they're probably going to be told to do 40 million things that are unnecessary. Ashley's shaking her head, right? But when she would go there, she would count the corners of my face in the first grade, and I could see her do it, you know, like very simple things. One of my first big insights was, oh my gosh, I'm like, she's fine. At the time, my 8-year-old was a baby, so I wasn't really worried about her yet. Like, I kind of knew she was good. But like, she's okay. And if it weren't for me doing all this, she would probably be more okay. And that just kind of stopped for me. Like, I stopped trying to control her, saw I had no control over her, and she just lifted out of it. Now, when she gets really tied up, she goes right back there, you know, but most of the time, for whatever reason, in the first grade, she could sense that. She could sense me just knowing she was okay because of the way I interacted with her was just different. You know, like, and I think that's the one thing that I see is kids just can see if you are trying to, again, it goes back to neutrality. If there's something you think that should be different, or if you're just meeting them in that moment and they're okay. So I would say I kind of wish I could reverse Jada, who's my oldest, because I try to teach her the principles at a very young age. I was like, well, we're going to sit down, we're going to learn this. And I try to teach her. And I have not done that with any of my other kids because I just see that they're so close to that anyway, that really just showing up to them being okay no matter what, like them seeing, them having that daily reassurance that there's nothing wrong with them, that they're perfectly fine the way they are. They get a sense of that themselves. So yes, tons
That's
of
really
resources
helpful.
out there. Yeah.
Okay. That's actually very helpful what you said, because I've kind of been in conversation with her mom a lot, and you know, it's kind of, they're looking at she's an international adoption, and they're looking at trauma from the perspective of anxiety that's trauma based and not, you know, anxiety that's social based. But I'm just kind of like sensing that, gosh, you know, it's if I can meet it from a place of just seeing that unbrokenness and being in that state of awareness myself is a big contribution, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the other things, and I forgot about it until you just said that, is being a part in this process. A huge part of this process has been, you know, state appointed people in their life. And so that we have people in our house every single day, from caseworkers to guardian ad litems to therapists that are state appointed to tutors. So every day there's someone else in my house, and we don't get to choose that. But another part of my arrogance was, well, one, we got a counselor that I would not wish on anybody ever, even like, no. That did say, like, you've been through something. I overheard him say it one of the first times, like, you've been through some things and that makes you different. And because you're different, like, there's things you're gonna have to, and I just was like, no, I don't like that. But we have a counselor now who's a trauma informed, and I have a whole new respect for the possibility that it's not as outdated as we think, because the way she shows up to those kids as completely whole and 100% okay, and gives them a sense of who they truly are without even knowing what we talk about, is just astonishing to me. And it gives them an outlet. Like, there's something about, I know there's a reason that coaches are helpful, right? And there's a reason that 3P therapists are still around, and there's a reason for all of that. And one of the things I think is huge is we're always telling ourselves something. There's always a reality up here going on. And there's something healing about getting that reality out. And how many times does this happen to me, where I start saying whatever it is that's been going on in my head for months and months, and I say it out loud, and all of a sudden I go, whoa, that's not real. But I've been stirring on it for so long, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I say it out loud, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So it was even that process of knowing, but, you know, and when the kids first came, I had a lot of this. This is what was going on with me and my husband. I made a terrible choice. Like, I didn't think about my own kids. This is, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? Can't take it back now. And I had all that. And the moment I held that in, because I was like, whatever, embarrassed about it, or didn't want to say it out loud because there's nothing you can do about it. So why would I say that out loud anyway? And the moment I had like a coming to Jesus with my husband, and I just spewed it all. As soon as I said that piece, I was like, that's not right. Because I knew when I made the choice, there was no choice to be made. It was just it wasn't a choice I like thought back and forth about it. I knew that this all happened because it happened. There was no choice that I made, right? Like, it was immediate. It was like, kids are in foster care, get kids. Kids are in house, done. And so there wasn't actually, like, that didn't make sense the moment it was out of my mouth. And then the same thing with what I've seen over the past few weeks with this trauma-informed therapist. There's things that have come up in the past few weeks because of all of the court stuff that you can see the kids in my house like are lifted. Like, you can see weights just dropped off of them because they've had to say something. And it isn't because they processed something or whatever, but it's because they said whatever they said and realized it wasn't true, right? They saw the thought in it.
Brooke, would you be willing to talk a little bit about the work that you do with kids in the community and what you've seen in terms of their well-being?
Sure. So, okay, we have a few minutes. So the Cyprus Initiative, we work, we're a nonprofit organization, and we developed the Spark program, which is a mentoring program. It started as a teen program, but now we have a child program and middle school program and a teen program. And basically, we just kind of the model that we do is we develop the curriculum and we give it away in our community. So we donate it to our community. And we're in the 8th largest district in the nation. So our goal is to be able to donate it to everyone, but that's a pretty lofty goal. And the way we support our program is by selling it to other districts and organizations around the country. But as far as impact, I mean, we see things that all the time about the program is really just talking about, we don't go into trauma, we don't go into things that I go into personally with my kids, right? But we do talk to them simply about, this is how it works. This is how your reality is created. And it's called the Spark program. And in our terms, Spark is just that innate well-being. Like, it's that thing that can't be broken. It can't be put out, can't be dimmed. And so we really just talk about those two things a lot throughout the program. And kids see everything. I mean, they see a wide variety of things, as you can imagine, probably, but they see, you know, we've had children that have cut for many years, realize that they're doing it to try to get away from a feeling and realize where their feelings come from, so they don't do that anymore. We've had, you know, students that are being bullied, and like, there was this one girl that, you know, says, she's like, I think my neighbor just tells me I should just kill myself. I think next time she says it, I'm just going to do it. And all of a sudden they realize that it's just it's just, they don't have to listen to that, right? Like, that's that girl's reality, not yours. And we've seen students, I mean, there's just a variety. Ashley could probably go into way more, but there's students who start to see how lost they can get into their thoughts, and then one of the coolest things is that they just start to have compassion for other people when they're lost. So very quickly, students will start to say, you know, I used to hate that teacher, but now I realize she's just really stressed out, has nothing to do with me, you know. They take things a lot less personally, and they're a lot less reactive. So through our research, like the two main things that we're seeing, because we do a lot of research, but the two main things that are coming out is impulse control. So increased impulse control, which is huge with kids, because with the frontal lobe not fully developed, that's like one of the hardest things to get at, but we're seeing increased impulse control and resilience, increased resilience. All right, anyone else? Well, thank you for oh, someone speaking. I thought I heard someone. Well, thank you for joining me and sticking with me. Again, like I said, I'm glad we did this, but just a lot of personal stuff that I had to waver through in order to get the point across. So thank you for sticking with me.
Thank you so much, Brooke. Wow, I don't know what I was expecting you to talk about, but what you were sharing was, I really just felt the space that you drop into as you're talking about it, and it's just really beautiful.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for joining us. Really appreciate when you come on live, and thanks for anybody who's going to be listening. If you do want to get in touch with Brooke, I'm going to post her information underneath the YouTube video. And our next 3PGC webinar is on August 22nd, and it's with Jackie Ford. So hope to see you then.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're
Very
welcome.
Very good.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.